Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock. Time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland Browns Stadium, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Another day of practice out in Berea. Deshaun Watson going through practices on a limited basis in team drills as well. Also met with the media. Watson talked about the injury and if he's going to be able to play Sunday against the Cardinals.
I'm not even sure. Just following the medical protocols, and we'll just go from there.
Is there a chance, Deshaun, that this is part of the ramp-up period to get you out there in practice? Or does this mean that since you're out there in practice, you have a really good chance?
No, I mean, it's part of the process. It's part of the protocols because you cannot throw and then just go out there and just try to play a game. So, you're just part of the process, and we just take it day by day. And it's getting better each and every day. The arrow's going up. The process has been very, very good, and we just, steady, just going day to day, and just making sure that we're doing everything we can to build that strength and everything. Man, we all got to be on the same page. I told the guys that I was ready in Indianapolis week, and that was my decision. And look, I wasn't ready, so I tried to jump the gun a little bit, and it didn't go our way. So, at the end of the day, you got to listen to the experts and all the things that they did. It's my first time dealing with it, so of course I know my body, so I'm keeping track of everything that I'm doing and letting them know what's going on and what's good and what's not good. So, I think we'll all be on the same page and we all feel right when that time comes.
With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy went out and threw again today. Reports are he looks good, but as we said it last week and we probably said it the week before, not going to really know until he gets out there and lets it rip during a game, in-game conditions.
Yeah, well, I've been saying all week is that they have to figure out a way to really stress test this injury before they full go and give him 100% clearance in the game, right? Now, you could do that in multiple ways. I've advocated for two. You can have him do a pro day, basically behind closed doors on Friday, have him go through a script of 25 to 30 throws, going left, going right, throwing hard, trying to hit the radar gun and everything. If he passes that test and is healthy afterwards, he'll be good for Baltimore. Or you could do an unconventional approach for this week's game, which is let Deshaun play like 2 series, see where he's at, see if he could rip the ball a little bit, and then after those series, go PJ Walker the rest of the way, because at this point, like, PJ's not benefiting from getting first team reps or anything else like that. Like, he's PJ Walker. He's gonna play like PJ Walker no matter how many reps you give him in practice. So yeah, I think that's one of the 2 ways you could go about it. But if I'm the Browns, I want to make sure that you see him throw the ball in a more velocity warranted situations than just like a walkthrough at practice.
Yeah, you're not going to know until you do. You got to put them through as close to game conditions as you can. Some other news on injured Browns. Marquise Goodwin not practicing, unknown why he didn't. Then working on the side, Greg Newsome, groin, David Bell, knee, and Alex Wright as well. Dwan Jones, Jedrick Wills, David Njoku returned after sitting out yesterday. So Newsome is a guy that has been questionable. Again, you should beat the Cardinals and not to take any NFL team lightly. But if you need a guy, if a guy's questionable, err on the side of getting him healthy.
Especially a guy like Greg Newsome and Alex Wright, who've been in and out the injury report all year ever since they got initially injured in that Pittsburgh game. So it seems like what they're doing to duct tape those guys together to get on the field might not be holding so well. So, just let them rest for a couple of days, let them get fully healthy so you don't have to worry about them getting on the injury report like every 3 quarters.
All right. With the trade of Donovan Peoples-Jones, trade deadline, some snaps are available at wide receiver, offensive coordinator. Alex Van Pelt on what that receiving core will look like.
We're going to play by committee out there. We'll see who lines up out there first, but big shoes to fill. I mean, just hats off to Donovan. Sorry to see him leave, obviously, as a player and a person, but excited for his opportunity. We'll have to have a couple guys fill those shoes. But is this an opportunity for Tillman? Yeah, I think he's one of the guys that definitely will be in the mix there. He'll find his way. It'll get him more involved than he has been in the past. Marquise will be in there. We'll roll guys through that spot.
You haven't seen Tillman since training camp. What have you seen in these practices? Has he improved in any area, or?
Absolutely. He's a guy that we were high on coming out of camp. Made a lot of plays in training camp for us. Made plays in the preseason, and then just starting to ease him back into it the last couple of weeks. And now this is going to accelerate that maturation for him. But big body, big target. Brings a lot in the run game as far as a force blocker. And then can make plays, contested plays, high point the ball, the things that he does well. So he'll definitely be more involved.
Quincy, I would expect him to get more than, if not most, of Donovan Peoples-Jones' snaps because, as he mentioned, his ability to block in the run game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of him and David Bell. He said multiple guys for a reason. I think David's probably going to handle some of the stuff in empty when you're going to expect him to kind of be able to flash open because David's been kind of good in those situations, especially on third down. And then, Cedric Tillman, he's probably going to do a lot of the stuff where you're trying to pull a defense over top or block for the run game. So I think that's a fair assessment of what that split will look like for them.
Take a look at this. This is concerning. NFL offense's 1st and 10 run rate of success on designed run plays. So the x-axis, rush rate. Y-axis is success rate. So not very successful on those 1st and 10 runs, which leads to 2nd and long and 3rd down. 1st and 10 run rate, they got to be better on that. That's if you're looking for an area that the offense can improve on and be more efficient, 1st and 10 running the football is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to get ahead of the sticks on 1st and 10, right? Like, that's the most important thing because it seems like 3 downs seem like a lot of downs until you get the 2nd down and the 2nd and 10. So, yeah, figuring out a way to get those 2 or 3 yards. I mean, you go back to that Indianapolis game, the thing that I hated about it most was that you would run the ball for like 2 yards in the first down. 2nd down, you would lose 2 yards. You end up at 3rd and 10. With P.J. Walker throwing the ball for the first time in the drive on 3rd and 10. It's not a good recipe, right? So they just, whether it be throwing the ball, running the ball, however they want to do it, they got to find a way to do what other teams have done to their defense, which is get 4 or 5 yards on 1st down.
All right. I know you've addressed this on your show. Make the rational case for starting DTR if Deshaun Watson can't go.
It all depends on how long you think this Deshaun Watson injury is going to linger. If you think this is going to be another month, let's say, with Deshaun Watson, then you really do have to start considering DTR because at this point, you know what you have in P.J. Walker and you know what you're going to get out of him. DTR is somebody where, hey, look, the floor might be lower. He could be worse than P.J. Walker, but he could also be much, much better than P.J. Walker. And if you're trying to save the season for 4 more weeks instead of like just put it together for a week or 2, then DTR makes a little bit more sense there. Now, it looks like they're feeling like maybe 1 game left holding it together. And it's funny that the Browns are playing the Cardinals this week because both teams are doing the exact same thing. The Cardinals traded Josh Dobbs because they're pretty sure they got like 1 game at best where Kyler can't play anymore. And the Browns did not make a trade for a backup quarterback because they're pretty sure we probably got like a game that we have to wait until Deshaun plays again, and we'll see what happens there. Both of those quarterbacks are right now questionable for the game. They're not necessarily out yet. So it's just interesting to see that these teams are in the exact same place. And that's exactly why DTR is not somebody they're going to go to. They're going to rock with PJ for a week.
All right, this is 2023 midseason all-rookie team. CBSSports.com put this one together. Offensive tackle, Dwan Jones. Jones has played much like he did at Ohio State. At his size, with his natural strength and stunning balance, Jones looks like Trent Brown 2.0, and he's bigger. Jones only has surrendered 12 pressures, 261 pass blocking snaps in Cleveland to date. When you say Trent Brown, boy, did they get a steal in the 4th round if he's Trent Brown 2.0.
Hey, man, whatever happened at that Senior Bowl was a blessing for us, right? Because to get him in the 4th round is crazy. Because this is not somebody that anybody thought was a 4th round prospect coming out of Ohio State. But I think people overthought it. They overthought some of the other stuff that you think about more and put more into fact that you factor in more than just their football play in that time of the year. And this is a great example of that. DeJuan Jones, the football has always been good with DeJuan Jones. The football was great at Ohio State. The football was good for the one day he was at the Senior Bowl. But everything else got people to forget that the football was great, and he ended up in the 4th round. The Browns end up with somebody who was a first-round caliber player. You can make the argument of all of the offensive tackles playing right now in this draft class, he might be the best one.
Yeah. He has produced better than they probably expected. All right, Browns did make a roster move. They signed offensive tackle Leroy Watson to the active roster from the 49ers practice squad. DeJuan Jones left the game Sunday, didn't practice Wednesday, did return today. But again, a guy that, they signed to the active roster because it gives you a depth piece. He's a depth piece. He's played some, being Leroy Watson. And if he's played for the Niners, it's a similar run game.
Yeah, and like you have two tackles who have been on the injury report. In the case that you have something flare up with both of those guys, you want to be prepared. Right now, you have James Hudson from if one tackle goes down, you want to make sure you feel good about who you have at that other tackle position. If both guys go down in the game, especially since, again, they've both been on the injury report. DeJuan Jones this week, but Jed Wills for like a couple weeks now. So, yeah, I think they're just covering the bases here.
Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little more about the Browns offense. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. So let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. Joel from Norwalk. Recently, Bernie Kosar praised Deshaun Watson for stepping aside from leading our team. Kosar himself had the exact same injury and confirmed Watson would have no ball control until he heals. In stepping aside, Watson is demonstrating the team player he really is. He's acknowledging that currently he's not the best chance we have to win. As always, go Browns.
Appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was a rotator cuff. I think it was more of an elbow. He got hit by Lloyd Burris. But to this guy's point, to Bill's point, yeah, if you can't go out and you can't throw the football, you really can't be a quarterback on the field in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, he's just handling the injury properly. Like I think that's what it is. The environment around this injury has gotten so polarizing that saying that feels like some kind of positive statement against him and his leadership. And obviously our caller kind of tried to make those points here. I don't think this means that Watson is like the greatest leader in the world because he's doing this, but I also don't think he's like trying to steal money from Jimmy Haslam, right? He's just handling an injury properly. It's a throwing shoulder injury. He cannot play. He's not playing, right? Like that. I don't think he really has a choice in that, right? He has a throwing shoulder injury. He cannot play. He doesn't have the choice to play right now. He doesn't have the choice to not play right now. He can't. He's hurt. And I think it's just an injury. I know people make the comparison to Baker Mayfield, but that was a non-throwing shoulder labrum injury that he got like 8 different doctors to try to get him to sign off on the play. Like it's just a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah, and again, he shouldn't have to defend himself when his throwing shoulder has weakness in his rotator. He just shouldn't have to. This is interesting as well. Percentage of offensive touchdowns this season that have been passing. And the Browns have the lowest percentage in all of the NFL, 36.4%. Titans 37, Ravens 42.1%. 60.6% of all NFL touchdowns have been passing this season. So you see how mightily the Browns have struggled to get touchdowns in the passing game. A lot of that has to go with, you've had P.J. Walker and you've had DTR and you've had a banged up Deshaun Watson who was rusty.
Yeah, and then this just was never an offense that was great at those red zone scoring touchdowns anyway. So those problems are now compounding with the fact that you have P.J. Walker out there, compounding with the fact that you've started 3 different quarterbacks this season, and compounding with the fact that Deshaun Watson has not been 100% healthy. Also, some of this has to do with Deshaun's run for a couple of touchdowns. And your run game has been clicking in that area of the field as well. So, I think we kind of know why that happens. I think it's a little bit exaggerated because when this team has gotten into the red zone, they've been able to score relatively well. I would love to know what their red zone score percentage is relative to the rest of the NFL compared to just that raw number where it's just looking at passing touchdowns. But, I think that it's obvious when you're on your 3rd quarterback of the year, you're probably not going to throw that many touchdowns.
Fair enough. Teams that have had the same offensive line for at least 50% of their total snaps this season, the Browns are one of them. Browns with Bitonio, Posick, Teller, and Wills and Jones, 311 snaps, 59.2% of their total snaps. Now, it's important to point out, when you say Jones at the end of that, that's not their starting offensive line because Conklin was their starting offensive line, but they have had the same group of 5, and the Browns are one of a few that have been able to do that.
Hey, credit to Dawand Jones for making us all forget that an all-pro right tackle just went out for the rest of the year, right? We talk about all these injuries that happened to the Cleveland Browns, right? We talk about Nick Chubb. We talk about Deshaun Watson on the offensive side of the ball. We don't ever bring up the fact that that Jack Conklin went down. And that's a credit to the level of football that Dawand Jones has been playing that we haven't even thought about that. So, yeah, Dawand's been doing a great job there. And the Browns offensive line, they have been able to get some continuity. I think you're starting to see that pay itself off, right? Those 5 weeks that they've had with Dawand Jones there. It's no mistake that the running game's starting to click. It's no mistake that the screen game's starting to click and that the overall picture offensively, P.J. Walker, Deshaun Watson or not, is starting to look a lot rosier because you can run the ball and you can throw these screens with efficiency and consistency.
All right, I know you've addressed this on your show as well. So far for the Browns, biggest underachievers and the biggest overachievers.
I'll pick a group of players that made the list for both of these videos. Quarterback. In some ways, you can make the argument that they've overachieved, right? Because we care about the process if it's a young quarterback like a DTR. We care about the process if it's somebody you hope to be a franchise quarterback like Deshaun Watson. We care about results when it comes to P.J. Walker. I don't care how it looks. We're throwing out P.J. Walker. We're understanding that it's not going to look pretty to a certain point. If it was, PJ wouldn't have been available at the end of training camp cuts, right? So you start PJ, you go 2-1, and I'm telling you right now, Dave, if I asked you before the season or told you before the season that Philip J. Walker was going to be the starting quarterback versus the San Francisco 49ers versus the Indianapolis Colts on the road and versus the Seattle Seahawks on the road, and you would be 2-1 with a point differential of 3. You'd be pretty ecstatic with those results. You'd be like, man, sign me up for P.J. Walker. And that's what you want out of your backup quarterback, is to give you a chance to win. You don't care how it happens. You don't expect greatness. You expect some turnovers. You expect some of this. But to be in that position, you've overachieved, because a lot of us would have thought that the Browns would have went 0-3 in that stretch, and that wouldn't have been a horrible assumption to make. Now, why you can also put them on the underachiever list is because the turnovers have just been way too frequent. Like, no matter how you put it, it's been like 10 in 3 weeks. That's not normal. I wouldn't even expect that from PJ Walker. So they got to find a way to put the cap on the turnovers. That's why you can make the argument for both of it. But I also think that we should probably be more appreciative of what we've gotten out of backup quarterback than what we haven't got out of backup quarterback, because it could have been so much worse than what we got. We really are privileged to be 2-1 at this point with backup quarterback play for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. You know, when you go and find a backup quarterback, find me a guy that can win in a pinch. And you were in a pinch, and he went 2-1 against some pretty decent competition. So I'm with you. All right, this from
and one pass away from going 3-0.
Right, one pass off a defender's helmet from going 3-0.
Yes.
All right.
It may be a defensive stand away. Like, you know, it could have. You had a chance to go 3-0 with PJ Walker, and you got to give PJ credit for that. You also could give PJ credit for them interceptions too, which is why he's on the other list.
All right, 3 Browns who they should extend before the end of the league year. This from Dogs by Nature. Grant Delpit, they say the projected value $12.386 million a year. Maurice Hurst, projected value $4.688 million a year. Sione Takitaki, projected value $2.74 million a year. And yeah, sign me up for all 3 of those guys. Maurice Hurst, you know, we've talked about him, and whenever we've talked about him, we've always said a lot of talent if he can stay healthy. He's managing to stay healthy, and he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, and the unfortunate truth about this, that's going to be good business for the Browns, but not great business for Maurice Hurst since he has that injury history. Even if he finishes this year out, there's not going to be a big multi-year deal waiting for him on the other side of free agency, so you'll probably get him back even for less than what Pro Football Focus is projecting there, because like 4.6 might be much. You might get around what Taki is being projected to get, which is like 2.4. And if you could bring back all of those guys for less than like $18 million, then yeah, sign me up for that. That'd be great.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take another timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Jim Schwartz about what the defense needs to do for the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Mike Florio on the Rich Eisen Show with a trade he thinks the Browns should have made at deadline.
It would have been a perfect opportunity to do a trade that involved various levels of picks based upon what Henry does the rest of the year.
Sure. Sliding scale.
It'll be a 5 or a 4 or a 3 or a 2, whether it's his success, whether it's team success. The Browns desperately need something for their offense. But the problem with the Browns is when you've given up 3 first-round picks and 3 mid-round picks for Deshaun Watson, and you've gotten no return on that investment, never mind the money. We talk about the money all the time because that contract was unprecedented. 3 ones, 3 mid-level picks, those are key players that can be part of your foundation for years to come, gone forever. And it's all into Deshaun Watson's hands, and he's not playing, and their defense is good enough to beat anyone. They just need something offensively. I thought it would have been a stroke of genius for them to go get Derrick Henry, do a trade based upon how well they do. It just feels like if they could get something out of their offense, the window is open for them to be a real contender for the first time in a very long time.
And Quincy, the reports were that Titans weren't going to trade him. Ownership said, no, we're not going to trade him. Derrick Henry probably would have helped. What they really need, though, is they need Deshaun Watson to come back and be effective.
The Browns are second in the league in rushing yards. You know, like I don't see the big need for Derrick Henry, especially with how they ran last week. They're second in the league in rushing yards. They run the ball a fair bit amount of time. Like they're fine at running back. They don't need Derrick Henry. And also when you bring in Derrick Henry, that's another massive change to this offense that you're asking them to adjust to in like 4 weeks, right? They already had to adjust. Okay, we're blocking for Nick Chubb. Now we're not blocking for Nick Chubb. What does that look like? You make that adjustment in the bye week. You see obvious results after the bye week, after you make that adjustment. Now we're going to adjust back to trying to block like we have Nick Chubb for Derrick Henry. It doesn't make very much sense, especially when it's not like your run game has been anemic. It's been top 5 in the NFL. So if that's the case, then you're fine. Do you know this rushing attack without Nick Chubb is still on pace to be as productive, if not more? They're actually on pace to be like 70 more yards productive than they were last year with the same amount of touchdowns. It's not running the ball wasn't going to solve this team's problem. And I wonder if Mike Florio really thought the Browns should trade for Derrick Henry, or did he just think that was a creative way to complain about Deshaun Watson in some way, shape, or form again?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, there was a lot of Deshaun Watson in a Derrick Henry trade conversation, right? Like that take had a lot of Deshaun Watson in it.
Well, and you know, I do get tired of the contract. The contract, they did that so that they could acquire him. Now, if you want to have a conversation was acquiring him, that's fine. The contract's kind of middle of the road right now. I know it's guaranteed and yada, 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 but all right. I'm tired of hearing about how much money Deshaun Watson makes. If he goes out and plays football like he's capable of, nobody's going to talk about that. He's been hurt.
And to his point about the draft compensation is like, yeah, sure, you gave up some first-round picks, but you've gotten real lucky in the second, third, and fourth rounds of these drafts to get high-quality players in. So, yeah, you're not bringing in the guys that you want to in the first round, but you're still keeping an influx of really good, extension-worthy, talented football players into this organization. So it's not like you missed much. And we always assume that these first round picks are going to be home run hitter, Pro Bowl players. But as Browns fans, we know that percentage on first round picks, the hit rate, far from 100%. So we should never assume that they were just going to 100% knock out every first round pick that they got.
Yeah, especially later in the first round. So that has been a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jim Schwartz talked about his defense kind of getting into a feast or famine mode the last couple of games.
We went 7 series of playing about as good a defense as you can play, like punt, punt, interception, punt, punt, interception, punt. And then it was just so disappointing to leave it there at the end of the game. Our offense needed us the most right there after an interception. They needed us the most, and we didn't get the job done. So we feel a tremendous responsibility for that. But the more plays we can make like Mo made, and an interesting thing with that, he had never practiced that position. We had some injuries with Zadarius and some other guys, and we had sort of mix and matched our defensive line guys, and he went in and at most he had gotten mental reps on that blitz, but went in and executed it really well, and then athletically made a really good catch. But we need more of that. We need more of that middle of the game. We can't be a feast or famine defense. That's not a way to play. That's not a way to play defense. And our run game was feast and famine too. We played, most of our snaps really good in the run game, but then we give up 3 big plays in the run game, and that's not going to get it done. That's not where we want to be. That's not where we need to go to take this team where we want to go.
And again, gives you a glimpse into what the defense is hearing from their defensive coordinator.
And that's good news, right? Because, we've been so focused locally about arguing about play calling or arguing about what they did on 3rd and 3 and who should be doing this and is PJ Walker enough and should we trade for Josh Dobbs or Jacoby Brissett, and all of these conversations that, we have lost sight that the defense in a lot of ways has dropped the ball the last couple of weeks, right? It got covered up in Indy, but that last touchdown they gave up to Michael Pittman was just embarrassing in that Indianapolis Colts game. And this last drive, like for as good as they played in the second and third quarter of that game, that first quarter was embarrassing, and that last drive was embarrassing by this defense, and especially a defense that likes to call themselves the best defense in the NFL. Hey, man, the best defenses in the league they hold to a field goal at the very least, if not give you a chance to get off the field on 4 downs there. It never even felt like it got close to that after the 3rd down conversion on that last drive. And then it seemed very difficult for the Seahawks to score. It just imploded on them. So that kind of stuff just can't happen. I don't really care for what the excuse is. It doesn't seem like Jim Schwartz cares for what any excuse might be for that. It just can't happen. Every other great defense in the NFL has had an excuse to fold in those moments, and they would have been justified in some way to fold. But if you're a great defense, it's because you don't fold in those moments, and they folded last 2 weeks in those situations. So I hope they come out playing like a defense that's been embarrassed for the last couple of weeks, and really leave no room for slack against Arizona.
All right, take a look at this chart. Coverage, predictability, and efficiency for NFL defenses in 2023. So the x-axis, coverage scheme, so how predictable the defenses are. Y-axis is, EPA dropback rate allowed. So Browns defense is really predictable, but really efficient, which is fine. That's if I'm Jim Schwartz, I like that. Yeah, you know what you're going to do. You know what we're going to do, and you still can't beat us. That's what that's telling you.
Yeah, most of the best defenses are on that predictable. Like, defense is not that complicated, right? Like, the really good ones are good because they do things specifically very well. You go back to Legion of Boom, you know what they were going to do. It was just, can you do anything about it? The Browns run a ton of man. They try to get pressure with their front four. That's rocking, and not many solutions around that. So, yeah, I mean, I think some people put too much stock into being unpredictable because Joe Woods was pretty unpredictable. It wasn't a good thing, right? So, it could go the other way.
Quincy Carrier and I.
You see where the Saints are on that list, by the way,
Yes, yes, we do. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Jim Schwartz, talk a little bit more about the matchup with the Cardinals. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Jim Schwartz talking about guys trying to just do too much on the defensive side of the ball.
Some of the gaps in our run game were us chasing boots, and our eyes got distracted. Instead of doing our job in the run game, we were trying to make a sack, and hard to get a sack on a run play. So, I think that, we have had to guard against that, and I think that there is there's a fine line between, doing your job and then trying to do too much. And we've talked about that ad nauseum in here and, everywhere else. If we just do our job, if we just be us the best that we can be, the plays will come to us. We don't need to hunt plays. And, we can make those. I was disappointed in the game that, we missed 2 or 3 sacks. I think that really could have changed the complexion of that game. And we can't now change personality because we missed those sacks. We just got to finish those plays when they come up next time, as opposed to trying to do something different.
And Quincy, the other thing is Geno Smith was a lot more mobile than I had given him credit for, but they got to do it against mobile quarterbacks, and you're going to see a couple of them coming up.
Well, I wouldn't say he's mobile. He's kind of like Jacoby Brissett, where he's slippery, right? Like he's more evasive than you would anticipate. But yeah, I mean, you're going to play more slippery and evasive quarterbacks than him. I mean, he's not even in the upper echelon of those kind of guys. So, you know, you got to wrap up. You got to finish those plays. Maybe I think sometimes the angles that they choose or how they like to throw themselves at these tackles at times does them more harm than good. And, you know, you just got to slow down just a little bit. And I think this is from the young guys on this defense. They just got to slow down, realize they don't have to move that fast, realize that they could slow down for just a beat to be able to take a better angle, make a better play.
All right, so this is very interesting. Highest completion percentage at 15-plus yards downfield. So, number one, everyone against Arizona, 65%. Brock Purdy is thrown it at 62.7. Everyone against Buffalo at 62.2, and Tua is just under 62%. So it tells you everyone is completing 65%, 15-plus yards downfield. That's an area the Browns can exploit.
Let me tell you. Look, Deshaun tried to get back this week, right? Because he loves to throw that ball downfield, and Arizona will let you. You know who else is like looking at Deshaun like, hey, you really don't got to go if you don't have to. P.J. Walker. Because if we know one thing about P.J., he will let it loose downfield. And it might work out for him this week. The numbers suggest that it may work out in his favor this week if he does that. So either way, no matter who the Browns throw out there, they're going to have a quarterback who's willing to take those shots. I think they're going to take those shots to David Njoku and Amari Cooper specifically. And I think that that's where they're going to probably live at when they're not running the ball. I think it's going to be a ton of running the football, and then every once in a while, drop back, take a shot, see if you can get it down there. They're going to try to probably get like 5 or 6 chunk plays through the pass game. And, you know, whether it's P.J. Walker or Deshaun Watson, I expect them to be 65% successful on those.
All right. Cardinals come in 1-7. How concerned should the Browns be about them? Again, NFL team. They have guys that can make plays in the NFL on their team.
And you're not going to sleepwalk and beat them, right? The Ravens sleptwalk and beat them, but you're not the Ravens, right? Like you aren't going to sleepwalk and beat this football team. So you need to come prepared and ready. And I think, you know, everybody should understand that. If you win this game, you're 5-3, which is the same record this team had when they went 11-5 and won a playoff game. If you lose this game, you're 4-4 and, you know, just another team in the NFL. So this is a big chance to set yourself up. You know that Deshaun Watson looks like he's rounding the corner health-wise, like he might either play this week, next week, or the week after. But you know that it seems like there is a light at the end of that tunnel after this week of practice, whether he plays this week or not. So you know what you need to do. You know what you need to do to set yourself up in the best position to be successful. And you know what, Dave? It's hilarious. It brings me back to the Jacoby Brissett days, right? What did we all say when Jacoby Brissett was out there, right? He has 11 games. If we can just get to 6 wins in those 11 games, if he could just get the 6-5 in those, well, if you get the 5-3, you will be fine. If he can play. And it's kind of playing that similar game, except for we're on the other side of it, where I think Jacoby went 4 wins in that stretch. If you can get the 5-6 wins in a stretch without Deshaun Watson, then you're set up for him to come in and be able to still take this season where you wanted to take it.
All right, along those lines, take a look at this AFC playoff leverage chart for Week 9 for Pro Football Focus. So if the Browns win, playoff chances are over 50%. If the Browns lose, playoff chances fall to under 50%. That's kind of what's on the line against a team that, quite frankly, the Browns should beat. They're 1-7 for a reason, but you got to come out and play.
Gotta come out and play. You're playing them at home. You should win this game, right? Like there's no excuse not to come out here and play well and win this game. You're starting to backup quarterback. They might start Clayton Tune. Okay, so like this is one of the rare games where you started P.J. Walker and you can legitimately say to yourself, I think we have the advantage at quarterback. So really no excuse to not come out here and play well. And to do it, you have matchup advantages. This is not a good run defense team. This is not a good secondary. You have some good wide receivers and you have a good running game. So you have the advantage. You have the home field advantage. You should try. If you come out here and put up a reasonable effort, you should win this game.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, always very insightful. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break. Lance Reisland joins us. Film breakdown, video analysis of the Browns defense. Some of the things they need to work to get corrected. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We heard earlier in the show Jim Schwartz talking about the Browns defense and cleaning some things up. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland. A little film breakdown, video analysis of some of the things the Browns can do to get back to that dominant defense that we saw early in the season. Lance, when you look at this, pretty easy things to clean up?
Well, yeah, and they're going to make some mistakes, and they're going to get beat. They're in a lot of man coverage, and they're going to have some gap issues once in a while. And early on, they were playing at like a 2000 Ravens, 85 Bears type level, like best defense ever for 5 weeks. So I think they're going to have some issues. They're going to fix those issues. But everything they're struggling with now, the tackling, the attention to detail, gap integrity, things that they have done really well, they haven't done the last 2 weeks very well. And I think they'll get back to that. Moving forward, it's just an adjustment, and they'll get better for sure.
So this first clip that we're going to take a look at is against the Colts, and they jump offside here. Take us through this.
So here's what you get. So this is just a fundamental thing. Watching the football as a defensive lineman, you go down to camp, you watch them every day. They're working on a ball. So they just have to work on things like snap counts and the little things that are just hurting them right now. So here's what ends up happening with this, though. It happened a few times against the Colts. Miles jumps off sides, and that gives Minshew a chance to just take the ball deep without one was a touchdown, and this was another play to Alec Pierce. So what ends up happening is, you jump off side like that, and the quarterback can just take a shot deep with no penalty because if it's picked off or whatever it may be, the play is coming back anyway. So again, just a small thing, attention to detail, watching the ball, lining up right, making sure you're in the correct gaps. Little things like that are hurting him right now. And this hurt him a number of times against the Colts. Just make sure you're watching the ball and not listen to the snap count.
And the other thing that we heard last week from Jim Schwartz was he wants the guys to shut the play down and not allow that to continue. If you're offside, just keep going. Get unabated to the quarterback so they blow the play dead. Missed tackles have been an issue as well. Take us through this next clip and what you see here.
Well, the thing is, so this is a 3rd and 4. So this is an opening drive for the Colts that resulted in a touchdown. But the point is, there's two things. One is it's a 3rd and 4. They make the tackle, the Colts punt, they don't score. So that's the first thing. These are guys. This is Newsome, JOK, Walker. These guys who are really, really good tacklers. They got to make these tackles in space, especially against a small guy like Downs. They make this tackle. The play's over. Another thing that the Browns have to work on because of the fact they're a man team is that front seven. Those guys have to be really sound in everything they do because they're not going to get a lot of run support with the secondary because the secondary is in man coverage. And some of the strengths you get with man coverage, obviously there's going to be some weaknesses. And one of the big weaknesses is lack of run support. So this front seven has to be sure tacklers, and they have been, except for the last couple games. And you couple that with some misalignments, some bad gap integrity, etc. This is what ended up happening. So they just got to make sure they're good tackles. This is a good 3rd down. They made him check it down. They just got to come up and make the tackle, which is something they've done, and I think they'll get back to.
And again, the Colts game was a little different. The Seahawks game, there was a spurt in there in the middle of the game where they played pretty well. Beginning wasn't really good. The ending wasn't what they wanted. Take us through this, and we keep kind of talking about attention to detail. That's another thing that I see you're marking in this third clip. What do you see here?
So, this is a little thing, but obviously you get 3rd and 1. The in vogue thing in the NFL is these QB sneaks, and what teams are doing is they're just loading up. So if you see the Browns are loading up in the A and B gap. Now, Walker is the guy who is super smart. I love him. I think he's a great leader for the Browns. He plays hard. He's athletic. But right here is just an attention to detail thing for me. So as a linebacker, he knows both A and B gaps. So the gap between the guard and the center tackle, they're filled. They got guys in there. So he doesn't have to get his nose in there. He should be immediately to the outside and tackle this for a loss. Again, good run, good. They block it really well, but you can see he's not touched number 5, and he's got to make that play. And if you see at the beginning of the play, he just hesitates just a hair. Well, in the NFL, a hair is a lot of yards in the NFL because these guys are so fast. So again, that's just an attention to detail thing where he says, you know what? I don't have to worry about an inside run. Make sure I get to the edge. And that's, again, I think with reps and what they're doing, he'll get better at this for sure.
So again, that led to that one of those longer runs for the Seahawks. Another thing, you mentioned gap integrity, and that's this one. Take us through this clip, what you see here.
So this is going to be the big long run early on against the Browns with Walker on that first drive where they came out and gashed him here. So as the play goes back and we see it a couple times, you're going to see Lockett go in motion. And as Lockett goes in motion, Newsome from the other side is going to run. And you're also going to see Delpit, who's at a linebacker spot. You're also going to see him go with the motion. So you see both of them run with the motion. Now, what ends up happening is that this is an inside zone to the left. And the Seahawks do a really good job of caving it down. But either Delpit or Newsome, they have to be the backside cut guy here. They have to be the backside. When he cuts it back, that's where they need to be. So they're a gap short because of gap integrity. So they didn't, for some reason, someone didn't fill this gap. Now, again, they're in man coverage. They need to trust each other. That's going to come with reps. All the mistakes are fixable, but this is easy. You see them both go, and you see the big, between the hashes, you see the big, huge lane because there's no cutback player. And in a gap defense, especially with man coverage, like I said, everybody has to be gap sound. And then also, things that haven't happened all year. Elliott got doubled out of the play. He's been very good. JOK is at the Mike backer. He avoids because he's not a collision guy. He's with linemen. He avoids them. So just a number of little errors here led to this big run.
And the other thing is it's been early in games the last couple of weeks as well. The Seahawks scored 17 quickly. The Colts scored, I think it was 14 pretty quickly. But they've adjusted, which again makes it seem like they know what they need to correct. This one is interesting as well. Mobile quarterbacks have given the Browns a little bit of issues. Take us through what you see here with the secondary.
So the secondary drill we used to work is called a plaster drill. So the secondary, when you have these movement quarterbacks, because they're in so much man coverage, they have to stay plastered or connected to these receivers longer than they ever have. Remember, when the Browns are in zone, when in past years, when a quarterback scrambles, the job of a zone player is to keep everything in front of him. The job of a man player is to stay connected. So again, they're working on these drills. They'll get better at them, but a lot of times when they're getting beat is because the quarterback's extending the play past that 3 to 4 second range, and they're not staying plastered to their drill. So they're going to work these drills. I guarantee you they're working these drills down at practice this week where they're going to move the quarterback, and they're going to get Clayton Tune, who's a pretty good athlete. The plays off script, off schedule, hurting them, and that'll be something they'll get better at. So this is really good coverage actually by Newsome. He just loses a step because of the scramble by Geno. So I think again, very fixable with practice, with reps, but again, stay plastered to those receivers when the quarterback scrambled, and they have to now because they're in more man coverage.
And the other thing is you've got a pretty darn mobile quarterback coming up in Lamar Jackson as well. So those are going to be important things the next several weeks as well.
Yeah, and the thing is they haven't had to do that. So again, if you're in a zone coverage, you get to keep that guy in front. And regardless of what the quarterback does, you're scrambling with him, but everything's in front of you. You see the receiver and you see the quarterback. In man coverage, it's a lot of times they won't even know the quarterback's scrambling, and they're kind of on a clock. And obviously the quarterback in the NFL wants to get rid of it. If you see the quick game, it's usually under 2.8. But no quarterback holds the ball more than 4 seconds in the NFL. There's too many good pass rushers. but when they scramble, often they will extend past that 4 seconds, and that's when the Browns secondary and those linebackers who are in man coverage need to stay with. And that's just practice reps working on staying with, especially on those third down situations.
Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, a video scouting report. Take a look at some of the guys that the Cardinals will employ that the Browns need to be aware of Sunday. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Browns getting ready for the Arizona Cardinals Sunday, 1 o'clock over at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Lance, you look at the Cardinals, 1-7. It's still an NFL team with some really good players. Let's take a look at some of the offensive keys for the Browns and take us through this first clip, what you see here and what is important in it.
Well, for the Browns, obviously they got to block 2 players. There's 2 key guys, Budda Baker and Kaiser White. Kaiser White's the middle linebacker. He's very good. He's a thumper. He's 6'2". He's 235 range. Leads the team in tackles. One of the leading tacklers in the NFL. Budda Baker, who's one of their safety, he's a perennial All-Pro. Now, he's not having a great year, but he's still an All-Pro talent who is very good. So you're going to see Budda Baker right here. He's going to get down in the box. He has a lot of similarities to Delpit, so he's on the yellow line. He comes up here in C gap and he makes a tackle on the run. Those 2 guys need to be blocked in the run game. And let's be honest, the defensive line for the Cardinals is not fantastic. And if you can get these White blocked and Budda Baker blocked in the secondary, you have a chance to get some big runs. And again, protect that quarterback. If it's Walker, and allow him to get that run game, and allow that run game to be his best friend. So, got to get those 2 guys blocked. White, the middle backer, and Budda Baker, that strong safety who's all over the field.
Yeah, and again, the run game will be important. Even if it's Deshaun Watson, you're going to want to lean on the run and let him get kind of accustomed, let his arm kind of let him get under himself and get used to throwing the football again. All right, take us through this next clip and what you see here as an opportunity.
So really like their linebackers. So like I said, Kaiser White, he's a thumper, he's a good tackler. Josh Woods is another big guy, thick guy. One thing they don't do, though, they don't cover very well. So I think Njoku, Andrews last week had 4 for 40 and a touchdown. I think Njoku can have a big week. Also, their secondary guys, Antonio, their corners, Hamilton and Wilson. They don't play the ball very well in the air, so I think you can take some shots with Cooper down the field that are safe in terms of just throwing it deep. They don't play the ball very well in the air. But underneath, I think Njoku, safe throws, option routes, he can be very successful against White and Woods. These guys are thick guys who don't cover as well in space. They're more tackle-to-tackle thumper type guys. So I think the Browns can have some success with their tight ends in the middle of the field.
And again, Njoku was a weapon against the Seahawks. The screens have been working, so those are all things that kind of make a lot of sense. Yeah, you mentioned it. So the Browns appear to have an advantage up front. Take us through this next clip and what you're thinking here.
So both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, where games are won at any level. You win and lose with your offensive, defensive lines. The Browns' offensive line is better than the front 7 of the Cardinals, and the Browns have faced some brutal front 7s that they've had some success with. So, they have to not be afraid here on 3rd and 8 to run the football. You're going to see the Cardinals here. The Cardinals do some exotic things on 3rd down. It really doesn't matter what 3rd down, but anything 3rd and medium, 5 and plus. So they actually don't have anybody in a stance here on the defensive line, and I'm not a big believer in that. I think you need to get guys down in a stance and be physical. So, I think it would behoove the Browns to kind of get down and set. And if they're going to come up here with these exotic looks with nickel and dime personnel and small guys coming off the edge, they can't be afraid to run the ball right at the Cardinals and get them out of these looks, because these looks are hard to pass protect. But if you get going downhill with simple gap schemes, you can gash them for big, huge plays. So, and especially with the Browns quarterback situation not being as settled as they like it, they can't be afraid to run the ball here on third down. And if the worst comes to worst, you punt it and let your defense play.
All right, let's flip things over defensively. Take a look at some of the things the Browns might be able to do. Expecting to see rookie Clayton Tune, although Jonathan Gannon, a local guy from St. Ignatius, said, there's a chance Kyler Murray could see some playing time as well. We'll see. But when you look at the defensive keys, what are some of the things you look for the Cardinals as far as the Browns defense goes?
Well, they got an injury at quarterback. They got an injury at tailback. They're basically hitting the reset button, right? So Clayton Tune's in. He's a guy I really like coming out. I did an extensive report on him last year. He's got 1,500 pass attempts in college. Played for Houston. He came out early on. They thought he was more of a system guy that Dana Holgerson air raid concept. Then he goes to the combine, has a great combine, runs a 4.6, really good vertical leap, 37.5, really good foot drills, threw the ball very well. Competed in the combine. I like guys who go down there and compete in the combine, because basically you're saying, this is who I am. I'm confident what I'm doing. And at the Senior Bowl, he had a really good Senior Bowl. I didn't think he'd last in the 5th round. He's a little bit undersized. At times, he will try to squeeze the ball in there. He has good arm talent, doesn't have great arm talent, so you can speed him up. I think the Browns need to, focus has got to be, let's be honest, let's stop the run. Anytime you get a young quarterback at any level, stop the run. Make him beat you. Make him make passes from the pocket. Get him in third and long situations. Speed him up. And he has a tendency at times to rush the ball and try to squeeze the ball in, at Houston anyway. He's only got one pass attempt in the NFL. So they're hitting the reset button. Browns got to take advantage of it and get after him.
All right, let's take a look at this first clip. And you kind of mentioned here, the offensive line has not been great.
So Humphrey's the left tackle. Their tackle, Paris Johnson, is the left tackle. I think he's an outstanding athlete, but he's young. Humphrey's the other tackle, really struggles with pure speed rushers, which the Browns have a bunch of. Obviously, they're starting over. Clayton Tune, this is what hurries a quarterback's clock here. So it doesn't allow him to go through reads. And, having 1,500 pass attempts and running the air raid, he understands coverage. He understands where the ball needs to be. The Browns need to hurry up that clock. By hurrying up that clock, that means pass rush. And these guys don't pass protect very well. And they're going to have to pass protect, especially with the run game also in flux with the injuries they've had there. So this is something the Browns got to do. They got to get after him. They got to attack this tack protection. They got to attack with their speed guys, make it third and long. And this is an advantage the Browns. This is a glaring advantage for the Browns up front with their defensive line, and they need to show that early.
So you mentioned the Cardinals are without James Conner. He's injured. That's their starting tailback. They do have a pretty young and talented tight end in Trey McBride. Take us through this clip and what you think of McBride.
Really like McBride. He's a guy, I really like him in the red zone. It's tough. Cardinals play hard. So, Browns got, like you said, this is an NFL team with NFL caliber talent. Now, they're kind of hitting the reset button, but, Browns didn't have much of a chance against the 49ers in everybody's eyes. So that's kind of what they're going through down there in Arizona right now. This Trey McBride, so last week he had 10 for 95, 10 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, you're seeing that here. He's good over the middle. I think he's going to, this is a great advantage. I don't think the receivers of the Cardinals match up very well with the secondary of the Browns. But I'll tell you what, the Browns have had some trouble covering backs and covering tight ends, especially in the middle of the field. So I think this is the matchup. I don't think necessarily they're better than the Browns, Njoku and Walker and these. Walker and JOK. But I think it's a matchup that is better than the receivers. The Browns cornerbacks are going to be very, very glue-like on these receivers, in my opinion. And this tight end, who had a big week last week, I look for them to kind of see if they can get him going. And again, Clayton Tune, easier throws over the middle, shorter throws. That tight end, those running backs, checkdowns, those are kind of security blankets for a quarterback. So they're going to attack JOK, they're going to attack Walker, they're going to try to attack Delpit in the pass game, because that's where they have not an advantage, but that's where it's more equal.
And final thing that you kind of mentioned is this is a game where you want the defense to go out and dominate. They were dominant in the first, 5 games. Last couple have been iffy. This is a game where that defense can get right.
So this is, when you talk about all levels of football, sometimes it's about the team you play, and sometimes you're going to play at a high level. So, I had a lot of people talk about the third down call, and people say, well, they should have ran it there. They should have thrown it there. For me, it's not the call that was made. It was the player, right? You put the pressure on Walker instead of putting the pressure on the guards in the center and Hunt to get 3 yards. So for the defense, for the offense, this is about what you do. So some teams you're going to play that are better than you. You have to play at a high level just to compete. This is the game the Browns are better. They're better up front. They're better at all 3 levels on either side of the ball. They have better players, more experienced players, more high-level players at just about every position. But the Cardinals are pros too, so they're going to come ready to play. So the Browns have to worry about getting lined up, having good gap integrity, making sure they tackle, making sure they communicate if they're in zone, making sure they don't jump off sides. Offensively, they need to make sure they run the ball. They need to make sure they take the pressure off. They need to play complementary football, and that includes Stefanski and his play calls. Don't be afraid to punt the ball. Put the pressure on Tune. So anytime you're 3rd and 8, third and long, run the ball and punt it, because then the Cardinals are going to struggle to move the ball with Tune at quarterback. So why give him a short field? They need to punt the ball deep if necessary. End every kick in a punt. I know I sound redundant and very coach-like here, but this is a game the Browns should win, and they have to put in their strengths and not let the Cardinals get in early. And there's a lot, and they need to take care of their own business and not really worry about what the Cardinals do, because they'll win if they do that.
Lance Reisland, plain dealer, as well as cleveland.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Make sure you check him out, Lance Reisland, cleveland.com, as well as the plain dealer. Always very insightful video analysis, film breakdown. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. No show tomorrow, Friday. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. We'll be talking about that Browns-Cardinals game on Sunday. Have a great night and a great weekend. We'll see you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.